Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. In this episode, we're going to look at the relationship between Casey Anthony and her cellmate Robin Adams. It was something that developed in somewhere between July and August of 2008 when they were cellmates, and they weren't really allowed to, but they started exchanging letters between one another, eventually hundreds of letters, which Casey thought Robin was disposing of, but probably had reason to suspect that she might not be. I say that because I don't think Casey was completely honest with Robin, and Robin, of course, wasn't completely honest with Casey because she kept the letters, secretly kept them, and then was able to provide them to the media in this expose in Cellmate Secrets. I thought it was a very good documentary, a little bit sappy and sentimental, but it did have some pretty chilling insights, and we're going to deal with those in a moment. Before we get to that, if you're interested in the Casey Anthony case, I will be doing a follow-up episode to this one. Then please subscribe to the channel, like, share, leave a comment, and let's get started. So I think one area that's definitely worth going into are the letters themselves, and I'm not going to go into them in this episode. I will go into Robin's letter after Casey was acquitted briefly. But I think two things that sort of came up that are worth talking about are the prison guard, Sylvia Hernandez, saying that she thought that Casey's relationship with her lawyer just seemed to be inappropriately friendly. That was her impression. And I think Robin said the same thing. They called one another Muffin and Cookie. I think Casey was Cookie and Robin was Muffin, or it's the other way around, not really sure. But what really stood out in the documentary was Casey telling Robin that the blanket that Caylee was wrapped in was a Winnie-the-Pooh blanket, and that information was not available. So there's no way that Robin could have known that or should have known that, or that Casey was supposed to have known that, unless Casey was involved in the disposal of her own daughter. And the thing that sort of comes up is, why wasn't Robin called as a witness for the prosecution? Why wasn't Robin called to testify on this specific point? The other thing that I think is quite interesting is you have Casey and Robin, their communication facilitated by a prison guard who is later fired as a result of that, and then asks for that to be rescinded, her dismissal to be rescinded, and so that she can say that she resigned. And then she took up a job as a police officer, which I think is quite interesting. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to read through one letter, or an excerpt of one letter, and it's from Robin, and that's where she provides her reaction on paper to Casey's acquittal. And it's in a weird way not quite what you'd expect. So she writes, "This has been an unbelievable turn of events that has completely shocked the entire world. Casey Anthony has been found not guilty. This could only be, in my opinion, God's divine intervention that has set her free." Now, if we just stop on that point, I do get a sense that Robin was a very religious person, or a very Christian person, and you get the impression that Casey knew this and sort of used that to some extent against her in some of her letters. So when she would mention certain things, she would say, I'm sure Caylee's in a better place, and the world's about to end, so I'm going to see her soon anyway, something like that. And so she was using Robin's beliefs for her own benefit, but we'll get to that correspondence in due course. So she goes on to say, there's no other explanation for her newfound freedom. As I sit here in total isolation, I can't help but to wonder why the prosecution never called on me to testify. I'm baffled by the verdict and so outraged that she was cleared of all charges. Now, what's quite interesting is when right at the end of the show, there's a reunion between Robin and Sylvia, the guard, quite a tearful, touching reunion. And at that point, they actually ask one another, what did you think happened to Caylee? And what is quite interesting is the prison guard is quite sort of outright, quite clear, quite blunt, saying that she thought that Casey was directly involved in that. Whereas Robin says, I thought it was an accident. The tone of this letter doesn't quite say that, does it? Anyway, she goes on to say, I'm baffled by the verdict and so outraged that she was cleared of all charges. Mostly jealousy pulses through me rather than anger. So it's quite strange, you have this inmate not angry about it being an injustice, but mostly jealous that it didn't happen to her. She says she feels jealous that I sit in jail and prison serving 3 years out of a 10-year sentence for a trumped-up case, and then saying, Casey seems to have gotten away with something. It's not really the right attitude, but then we're talking about cellmates, aren't we? People who are in jail. So I'm not going to take it further than that. I will be doing a follow-up episode dealing with some of the content of the letters and a few other details from the documentary, which was pretty good. I'm not sure whether the one coming up on Chris Watts is going to be as good, though. So if you're interested in a little bit more insight and analysis, then watch this space for further episodes on Cellmate Secrets. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.